So Broadcom is up about 20% year to date. Nvidia is up 75% year to date, and the overall market is up 8%. So both Nvidia and Broadcom are outperforming the market. Nvidia is obviously doing a lot better. But that being said, Broadcom is also a lot smaller than Nvidia. Right now they have a market cap of around 600 billion, whereas Nvidia has a market cap of about over $2 trillion. So there's a lot more runway for Broadcom to grow. And on top of that, I believe Broadcom actually pays out a dividend yield of about 1 to 2%, whereas Nvidia's dividend yield is only a decimal percentage. So Broadcom does also have a stronger dividend payout. So it'll be interesting to know if Broadcom could potentially grow faster, and if so, they would be a stock that is producing returns similar to Nvidia while also paying a larger dividend and potentially increasing their market cap similar to the way Nvidia did very recently over the last 1 to 2 years. These two companies are in the same industry in semiconductors and software. So I just wanted to analyze this company, talk about their business model, look at their financial statements for the fourth quarter of 2023 and also the first quarter of 2024, the earnings results which recently came out, and just try to figure out if Broadcom could potentially be the next Nvidia. So before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about Broadcom's business model. Broadcom is a tech company that builds and sells two main products, semiconductors and software. Broadcom's semiconductors are sold to customers in different industries, including data center operators, software service providers, and companies that sell products for industrial applications. These semiconductors allow consumers to build computers and mobile products with improved efficiency, enhanced security, and powerful data processing capabilities. Broadcom's software products are built for customers looking for cybersecurity solutions, storage solutions, and information technology solutions. All of Broadcom's products are sold through their own global distribution and sales network and through their website direct to consumers. So the big question is, will Broadcom be the next Nvidia? Well, the semiconductor industry is known for its collaborations and partnerships. Companies often use components from a variety of manufacturers in their products, which suggests a landscape where Broadcom and Nvidia could coexist rather than directly replace one another. Both companies have been involved in acquisitions and strategic partnerships to bolster their positions in the market. Broadcom's strategy has included expanding into software and broader hardware solutions, while Nvidia has focused more on cementing its leadership in artificial intelligence, gaming, and automotive solutions. And so while both Broadcom and Nvidia are influential players in the semiconductor industry, they operate with different focuses. Direct replacement of Nvidia by Broadcom is unlikely due to the specialized nature of Nvidia's GPU technology and the different market segments both companies target. Instead, these two companies are more likely to remain key players within their respective niches, possibly increasing their competition in shared markets like data centers, but without outright replacing one another. It's safe to say, really, that Broadcom might continue to increase its stock price similar to Nvidia, given that they are both pretty much going hand in hand in the semiconductor industry and the GPU market. So really only time will tell if we could see Broadcom catch up in stock price to Nvidia. And if it does, that would obviously result in a pretty extensive share price increase and a lot of profits for investors in the future. So now I want to look at their financial statement results for the full year of 2023 and also for the first quarter of 2024. We can see right here, these are the full year income statement results for our Broadcom in 2023. They had total net revenue of about $36 billion, which is up 8% from $33 billion. And then for net income, they had net income of about $14 billion, which was up 23% from $11 billion in 2022. Also, although it isn't noted here, in the fourth quarter, Broadcom had $9 billion of revenue, which was up 4% year over year. And they also had about $3.5 billion of net income, which was up about 5% year over year. So similar to Nvidia, Broadcom has been experiencing an increase in revenue and earnings, as well as an increase in their stock price, just not at the same explosive, cataclysmic rate that Nvidia has been experiencing over the last year now. Now we can see this income statement for the first quarter of 2024, which recently came out. And we can see their total net revenue for the first quarter was about $12 billion, which is up a whopping 34% from $9 billion in the first quarter of 2023. And then for net income, it looks like they actually had a decline of about 65% from $3.7 billion in the first quarter of 2023 to $1.3 billion in the first quarter of 2024. And we can see that this steep decline mainly came from expenses related to Broadcom's recent acquisition of VMware, which could potentially end up paying a lot of dividends for Broadcom in 2024 and also 2025, because Broadcom released a statement where they said that they expect the recent acquisition of VMware to push revenue to $50 billion in 2024, which would obviously be a very big step up from $35 billion in 2023. But as it stands right now, we can see that the increase in amortization of acquisition related to intangible assets, that's a VMware, increased their cost of revenue quite a bit. And then we can also see there was an increase in their operating expenses here, as well as an increase in some more amortization expenses. So that was a main contributor to the decline in the profit margin for Broadcom in the first quarter. To end this off, I just wanted to look at their cash flow statement very quickly, because there was a very interesting line item here comparing the two first quarters to each other, and that was the repurchases of common stock as a part of their repurchase program. And we can see that in the first quarter, they repurchased $7 billion of common stock, whereas in 2023, they repurchased about $1 billion of common stock in the first quarter. That's a pretty massive increase. They also increased their payout in dividends. So it's safe to say that they could be prioritizing returning value back to shareholders a lot more this year than they were last year, which would also be another major contributor to Broadcom's share price exploding potentially in 2024 and 2025, similar to Nvidia's. And if they did that, then Broadcom would definitely be a very good buy at the current share price. Not to mention that Broadcom, as we see, is also trading at $1,300 per share, which could end up inciting some sort of a stock split in the near future here. Broadcom and Nvidia are both nearing that stock split range. And if there is a stock split, the share price gets a lot smaller, the amount of shares in the market increases, and the amount of trading activity related to Broadcom might increase as well, which could also contribute to increasing the share price, along with this really strong repurchase program they have going on right now. So now I wanted to look at a DCF model to try to figure out the intrinsic value per share for Broadcom. I'm using a growth rate for the first 5 years of 13%, which I got from their compounded annual free cash flow growth rate for the last 5 years. In 2019, they had about $9 billion of free cash flow and $17 billion in 2023, which equates to about 13% growth per year. We can also see that their current net cash minus net debt on their balance sheet comes out to a net debt position of about $30 billion. And the weighted average cost of all of their capital that I'm using to calculate the discount rate for this DCF model was about 6%. And I calculated that using this calculator right here. You can feel free to pause the video and get a better look at it if you'd like, or ask me any questions about it in the comment section down below. Lastly, they have about 400 million shares outstanding. That amount is obviously rapidly decreasing with the amount of money that they're spending repurchasing shares of common stock. So we can see the intrinsic value per share comes out to about $856 per share, which means that at the current share price, based on these estimates, Broadcom would be a little bit overvalued based on their current free cash flow growth, given that they're currently trading at $1,300 per share. Now we can see this industry analysis comparing Broadcom to two of their biggest competitors, AMD and Nvidia. It looks like, based on this, Nvidia has the best profit margins and return on equity, but Broadcom is trading at the lowest price to earnings ratio and the lowest price to cash flow ratio. Something to keep in mind about the price to cash flow ratio is that it's actually a very consistent metric when it comes to calculating, or when it comes to basically guessing if a stock is going to increase its share price. Because typically, If a price to cash flow ratio for a company is lower than the industry's average price to cash flow ratio, which as we can see right here, it very well might be since AMD and Nvidia have a higher price to cash flow ratio. As Broadcom's price to cash flow ratio catches up to AMD's and Nvidia's, their share price will likely increase as well. So this could be another indication that Broadcom may potentially increase in stock price in the next few years. Lastly, we can see based on dividend yield, Broadcom pays the highest dividend out of the three companies by far with a 2.19% dividend yield. So if you're basing this based on potential growth, just looking at these numbers, to me, this tells me that Broadcom has the most room for potential growth. But then again, the PE ratio for Nvidia is a lot higher, meaning that professional investors who obviously have way more information than I have might be pricing in the fact that they believe Nvidia has a lot more room to grow than Broadcom does. So based on this, on profit margins, you want to give it to Nvidia, but basically for dividend yield, Broadcom is beating out AMD and Nvidia. Lastly, I wanted to compare Broadcom to some of the other companies we've looked at on this channel. They were not trading below intrinsic value per share, so they don't make it onto the intrinsic value table. Looks like I might have created a duplicate entry here, but you can see plenty of the other companies that were trading below intrinsic value per share. Then we can see for growth rate, Broadcom had a 13% growth rate over the last 5 years for free cash flow. One of their main competitors, Nvidia, is at the top with 44%, and AMD is in 4th place with 32%. For dividend yield, Broadcom comes in 9th place with a 2.19% dividend yield. We can see 3M had the highest at 5.49%. Then we can also see for gross profit and net profit, Broadcom comes in 10th place on the gross profit table at 65% compared to other companies we've looked at, and 2nd place on the net profit table right behind its main competitor, Nvidia, with a 39% net profit margin compared to Nvidia's near 50%. Right now, Broadcom is the only company we've looked at so far for the first quarter of 2024, so they're sitting at the top with their 34% Q1 revenue growth and negative 65% Q1 earnings growth. We can also see that for the last 3 quarters, Q4, Q3, and Q2, Broadcom did not have revenue or earnings growth that was good enough to get them onto any of the tables, but Nvidia was able to make it at the top of pretty much every single table. So this is obviously a strong indication that Nvidia might have more growth potential than Broadcom. So it's really tough to tell if Nvidia or Broadcom will continue to grow more in the future. Obviously, Nvidia has a lot more to prove because their share price is already so high. Lastly, for stock performance over the last 5 years, Broadcom has increased about 335%, putting them in 7th place here in front of Microsoft, Cintas, and Meta, with Nvidia at the top with a 2,000% return over the last 5 years. So let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think of Broadcom. Leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see everyone in the next one.